Salam, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Omar Aziz. I am the Executive Director of AACO, the Afghan-American Community Organization. We are so glad and thankful to all of you for joining us tonight. As many of you know, after the tragic shooting in Washington, D.C., President Trump has directed his administration to suspend all Afghan immigration cases. And so we're now hearing that federal agents have been instructed to track down over 2,000 Afghans with final deportation orders. And it's a time of fear and a lot of panic and a lot of uncertainty in our community right now. And so we're really grateful to bring together some really amazing folks and partners to help us navigate this moment. And Sophia, if you can go to the next slide for me, please. The way tonight is going to look, we're going to go through some opening remarks. We'll cover some immigration policy changes from Spujmi Nasiri from AACO. Then we'll talk about international travel from Amina Fields of CARE LA, and then talk about ICE FBI encounters with David Tarr from CARE SF Bay Area. And then we'll end with some discussion about what to do if you're detained by ICE and your rights with Sarah Kogadai from Project Anar. And we will have some time at the end to answer some questions for those, a few questions. I'm sure there are many right now, but we'll do our best to answer as much as we can. And a little bit about our organization, AACO. Our vision is to support as a supportive, empowered, and engaged Afghan-American community. Our organization focuses around four things. We community building, we do legal advocacy and support, we do academic and professional development, and we support our community back in Afghanistan. So we're really grateful and thankful to all of you for joining us to be here. Our esteemed guests and panelists for tonight, we're really, again, so grateful to all of them for joining us, because we know that in moments of uncertainty and panic, and in moments like this, despite all of the news, and despite all of the unfortunate things that are coming out and the targeting of the Afghan-American community, we also know that there are many allies and partners and organizations and individuals who are currently standing with our community, who show up for our community, and who refuse to let fear dictate policy or silence. So many of you folks here tonight are those allies and those people that are supporting. We know that folks in this that joined us today are working in their own capacities, in their own organizations, to support Afghan Americans. We also know that many of our Afghan brothers and sisters are here tonight as well, navigating this uncertainty. And so to each of you, we want to thank you. And again, especially to our Afghana that are here tonight, we want you to know that there are so many people across this country who are here to support you, to advocate for you, and fight for you. And so I'm honored that the folks tonight that are joining us are doing exactly that. And so I'd like to introduce our folks for tonight's panel. We have Spujmi Nasiri, who's an immigration attorney and on the board of directors for AACO, a longtime immigration advocate, and does a lot of really great work for the Afghan-American community. Amina Fields, who's an immigrant rights managing attorney for CARE LA, Greater LA. And so we know that CARE is doing amazing work across the country supporting the Muslim community, and have really stepped up to support Afghans in this moment. Sarah Kogadai, who's an immigration attorney for Project Anar, an Afghan-led immigrant justice organization that are supporting Afghans across the country and leading a lot of this work. David Tarr, who is an immigrants' rights managing attorney for CARE SF Bay Area, are all immigration attorneys that have. We're really thankful to join us for tonight to talk a little bit about what's going on. And so, a quick disclaimer: we just want to make sure folks know that this is a session for general information only. We cannot answer individual legal questions or advise on specific cases. You're welcome to put your questions in the chat or use the Q&A feature, but we won't be able to answer very specific questions. We'll do our best to answer general questions, and if we see any themes that arise, We just want to remind people to consult a licensed immigration attorney for any case-specific help. And when this session will be in English only, but we know that there will be upcoming sessions through our organization, through Project Anar and others that will be also be in Farsi, Pashto, so folks can access that as well. And we'll go ahead and I'll pass it off to Spijmi Nasiri to get us started.
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this uncertain times. We know that all across the country and all across the world, immigrants, Afghans, and also individuals from 18 other countries that were recently put on the travel ban list are living in anxious times and moments. Grateful for all my co-panelists to be here. Our hearts and prayers go out to the two National Guards and their families. We know that this is a difficult time, not only for our Afghans, but realizing the families that have been impacted by this tragedy. So thank you for being here again today. What I want to make sure people understand is, again, we are not answering specific case questions. If this is live on Facebook, so we don't want anyone's information shared. So if you do have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we can try to answer your questions as best as we can. We know that this administration from day one has been xenophobic, Islamophobic, and based on bigotry and hate and division. This administration is using the tragic incident in a DC shooting to not only divide immigrants and pin each other one against each other, but also to demonize immigrants, law-abiding citizens, and collective punishment for the action of one individual, impacting lives not only in the United States, but all over the world. And we know that this administration is weaponizing these incidents to carry forth their xenophobic, Islamophobic, hate rhetoric to further their agenda. So having said that, I wanted to my task today is to sort of give a short overview of all the changes that have been happening. Many of you all across the country, my colleagues that are on the calls and advocates and fellow Afghans and others who are on this call are probably scrambling and figuring out what is going on because day to day everything is changing. So we know that on the 26th, after the DC shooting, there were some social media posts from this administration talking about what they are going to be doing. Then came out the changes and the implementations of these programs are both at USCIS, State Department, and Homeland Security, and I'm going to kind of give an overview of all that's been impacted. Next slide, please. So the December 2nd memo that came out, and prior to that, there were travel ban countries that were put and restricted, which I don't want to go through all the names, but they're all here. There are 19 countries, and we foresee another 12 or 13 being added, or even more, based on the rhetoric that we're seeing to this travel ban list. So the USCIS December 2nd memo, which was just from 2 days ago, has specific but not detailed enough information in there that some of the information may be confusing. So I'm going to try to do my best to give an overview of what this memo entails. Please keep in mind that this information is as of December 2nd. Every day things are changing. So if you're here joining us for the call today, understand that these information may change rapidly. So first and foremost, this memo laid out that all asylum cases and withholding of removal applications have been completely halted, which means it could be from the 19 travel ban countries and any other countries that are on there. So first and foremost, understand that if you have an asylum case pending, an affirmative asylum, meaning you filed with USCIS office, those cases are going to be halted. For those who are in deportation proceedings and they have a defensive asylum case, their memo did not discuss those. So at this point, we don't know the status of those. In addition, there are going to be no approvals, denials, or case closures for these asylum cases. So they're halted and no interviews. So thousands of asylum seekers face uncertainty and delays. If we were hearing from different partners in different community that if you had an asylum interview, some of them have been canceled. Some of them, they are calling individuals, but they're advising them that we're not making any decisions. And there's no waivers for those interviews. So if you have an interview coming up, please keep an eye out whether you get a notice that says your interview's been canceled. If you are called in to go for the interview, please make sure you do go into the interview. But at this time, based on this memo, they're not going to be making any decisions. They'll probably do the interview and then just hold on to it until there's further clearance on how they're going to be moving forward with it. Next slide. So in addition, so this applies to applicants who were national or born in one of the 19 countries. In addition to the asylum, which is all across the board, you don't have to be from the 19 countries. This specifically applies for the 19 banned countries and potentially other countries. So effective, regardless of the date that you enter the United States, I'm seeing my own clients, their N400 citizenship interviews were canceled as of yesterday, a few of them. If you had an oath ceremony scheduled, they were canceled. We're hearing from dozens and dozens of colleagues that their clients had oath ceremony scheduled tomorrow, next week. They were notified that they're canceled. If you filed an I-485 adjustment of status, an I-751 removal of condition, I-90, I-131, the N-470, which is to preserve your naturalization, and any other immigrant and non-immigrant filings. Do you mind going to the next one? Because I had some information I wanted to make sure. Okay, sorry, can you go back? So what I want to reiterate here is that these are the cases, or these are the type of cases that they are not, I'm sorry, go back, go forward. Yeah, thank you. One more back. So in saying that if you have a pending application in any of these categories, they're going to either cancel or they may hold an interview, but they're not going to make a decision on the case. But what I want to reiterate is very, 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 very important is you should file the petition if you haven't filed. So for example, if you need to file for citizenship, you're eligible, go ahead, file it. If you need to file an I-45 for adjustment or get your green card and your asylum was approved, or an I-751, any of these type of benefits or other benefits, the memo does not discuss that you cannot file. It just says no decisions can be made. So at this point, based on the lack of information of not filing, many of my colleagues and myself are advising individuals that if you are eligible, go ahead, file. You should get a receipt notice and you'll have your case in queue. But keep in mind that they may not progress on that. So again, I want to reiterate, if you have not filed and you're eligible for one of these, we encourage people, first of all, talk to an attorney to talk about your specific case. And if you're eligible, go ahead and file. Next. The other third component of this memo was there's going to be a comprehensive re-review, potentially interview and re-interview of all individuals who came from high-risk countries who entered on or after January 20th, 2021. They could potentially go back further if they need to, but specifically for these individuals, no matter how they entered the country, whether they were admitted, inspected, whether they were paroled from or they entered without inspection through the border. So eventually these individuals are going to have a comprehensive re-review, potentially another interview and another re-interview of their cases. So one of the things it's important is if other than a US citizen, anytime that you move, you are supposed to be filling out a form AR-11 to update your address with the immigration officials. So it's very important that you update your information whenever you move, because if you get any type of a notice for an interview and you miss it, that's potentially going to have catastrophic impact. So again, anybody other than a US citizen, when you move, you have like 10 days or so to update. You can do it online, which is called AR-11, or you can do it, print it out and mail it in. It's important that immigration officials have your updated address so that you can get future notifications for anything that you may need. And next. So, as of 2 days ago, what are we hearing? I have been tracking, in every form of media that I can, Signal, Instagram, I mean, all over, checking with people and see what's going on. Many organizations and individuals are confirming again that the naturalization ceremonies for this week, for nationals of Venezuela, Iran, Afghanistan, and even applicants who hold dual citizenship, they've been canceled. We're also hearing that the adjustment of status interviews have been canceled, and the officers are not able to make a decision. So I have a client that's scheduled for N400 citizenship. If the interview is not canceled, I've advised them to go do the interview, but there will be no decision made until further notice. Next. So the restrictions specifically for Afghans, and these are the lot of questions that I'm getting either but from my clients, from everyone else, is how Afghans are being impacted not only in the United States, but at the embassies abroad. There was a memo out in November where if you were a US citizen, by law, you could file for a spouse or a fiance. The fiancés were taken out. Now, under this current December 2nd memo for Afghan nationals and others that are on the travel ban, they're being impacted, especially for Afghan nationals who are being targeted, who came in through the Operation Allies Welcome. They came in through humanitarian Pearl pathways. They came in through SIV or P2 refugees. Now, I don't want to cause hysteria or concern, but what I'm saying is that individuals from both here in California and other states have been visited and they're being questioned and asked about, how they enter the United States and potentially they may be a target. USCIS has indefinitely stopped all immigration requesting processes for Afghan nationals, causing major delays and uncertainties. The State Department suspended issuing both non-immigrant and immigrant visas for Afghan passport holders, which means any kind of a interview that family members may have had at the embassy, you might potentially get the interview canceled, or if you were issued a visa, they may revoke it. We did hear a few individuals, specifically from partners, that for the SIV, if they already had it, they were taken off the plane in Islamabad. Now, again, I'm not trying to cause any hysteria that it's going to happen to everybody. I'm just saying factually that there were some individuals who were they revoked. So for Afghans, there's going to be a comprehensive review of all of the Biden administration policies. And, for now, if you're a citizen, you cannot file for fiance or spousal or parent or children, including all the 18 banned countries. So at this time, if somebody's a US citizen and they want to file a spousal petition, the advice is go ahead, file it. But we don't know how they're going to be proceeding with those applications. Next. So thank you so much for that portion. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Amina to talk about traveling, what you should know and what you should be aware of in terms of your international travels. Amina, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. I'll discuss your rights when traveling, when you're returning from a trip abroad, and what to expect and how to prepare for any encounter with federal agents. So, first, I want to recommend that during this time, certain groups don't travel. Due to the backlash demonstrated by this administration through policies and attacks on the Afghan community and other communities as well, it is not recommended for you to travel internationally or domestically if you are not a U.S. citizen and are from one of the 19 countries that is listed on the travel ban in the immediate future until we observe the trends and see how the government will be enforcing the policies that they have announced officially through various agencies and on their government social media accounts. As an LPR, I would recommend that you also consult with an immigration attorney before traveling internationally or domestically if you are possibly in the at-risk category. And here are some examples of people that I would recommend to seek consultations for before they travel. And those are people that have LPRs that were approved between 2021 until now, and who are from those 19 countries that were listed in the recent travel ban this year. Also, if you are an LPR and have a criminal history, even though it may be minor, I would recommend just checking in to see if there are any unanticipated consequences due to recent policy changes. Additionally, if you are an activist, such as an activist that's very vocal about Palestinian human rights, you may want to see how that can impact your status, as we've seen other lawful permanent resident status have been impacted because of their activism. And also if you had some extensive travel history abroad, if you had any prior encounters with federal agents, such as if the FBI has visited you, and um, also if you have other concerns about your immigration history that you think the government would try to revisit. Next slide. So, before we get into what to expect and what they can and cannot do, here are a list of agencies, federal agents that you could encounter at the airport. First, you have your CBP, the Custom Border Protection, and they are the first line officers at customs and immigration checkpoints. Next, you have your TSA, Transportation Security. You have your Immigration and Custom Enforcement, ICE, and Homeland Security Investigation, and sometimes the FBI. So TSA handles like security screening before you board flights. They're going to screen your bags, devices, and they're enforcing the no-fly list restriction. Then the ICE agents are ICE is the largest, one of the largest law enforcement agencies in the nation under the Department of Homeland Security, and they primarily focus on enforcement and removal operations. So if you see them at the airport, they could be investigating specific issues or intend to detain a specific person there. And they could detain people at the airport. SHIs, their primary also focus on investigating certain border crimes such as smuggling and human trafficking. And the FBI is there, if they're there, they're probably investigating also some terrorism or national security issues. Next slide. Um, So, your rights at the airport and border as a U.S. citizen and LPR. Um, your rights will vary depending on your status, and a lot of what I'm going to discuss applies to U.S. citizens and LPR, and then I'm going to make some distinctions about how that differs from someone that is not a U.S. citizen and don't have status. As a U.S. citizen and LPR, you have an absolute right to re-enter the U.S. U.S. citizens and LPR cannot be denied entry, but LPRs can be detained if CBP suspects a violation of immigration laws, and non-immigrant visa holders can be detained and or denied entry. What they will do is review your documents to identify who you are and the basis for your entry. So you will be required to show a valid passport, LPR card, or visa, or other valid travel documents if you intend to return to the U.S. And during this encounter, you should expect some questioning, although limited. They will question about your travel. But just remember, as a U.S. citizen, um, your entry is guarantee and also LPR. Even if you're flagged for questioning, um, your right as a U.S. citizen to re-enter the U.S. is unqualified. Agents are obligated to let you back into the country. This is grounded in both constitutional and immigration law principle. But this doesn't apply to lawful permanent residents or LPR. So let's go to the next slide. What you can do, what agents can do and cannot do. So let's take a look at this list. What they can do is at the port of entries, at the airport or border crossing, you can expect to run into the CBP officers, and they will inspect your passport to make sure that your identity is valid. They will search your luggage. Can search your electronics, and they can ask you a question about your travel, and possibly other topics that may not seem as relevant. You have the right to not answer those questions that are not um, irrelevant to your travel. But if you are not a U.S. citizen and decide to not answer those questions, you may face some immigration consequences, and the consequences would result on your status. If you are a non-U.S. citizen, and they will make decisions about whether you are ineligible to be admitted to the U.S. under the inadmissibility section of our immigration laws. As mentioned before, as an LPR, you can't be denied entry, but CBP can detain you and refer you to immigration court proceedings if they believe you have done something to violate your LPR status. And only an immigration judge can revoke your LPR status. You have a right to be represented in immigration court by an attorney, but it will be at your own expense. A person who is not a U.S. citizen or an LPR holder can be denied and placed on the next flight back to their home country, or can be denied and detained and placed in immigration court proceedings. If you are denied admissions and you fear returning to your home country, it's important that you verbally express to an immigration officer that you fear returning to your home country and that you want to seek asylum and that you would like a credible fear interview. That is the first process in trying to seek asylum in the U.S. If you're a non-citizen and you don't have you don't have a right as a non-citizen, you don't have a right um, to an attorney during this inspection at the border or at the airport, and therefore you can be denied entry into the U.S. without access to an attorney. But then if you are placed in removal proceedings, instead of being sent back to your home country, you have the right to hire an attorney at your own expense. CBP officers have broad authority at the border, but it's not limitless. The Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution typically requires a warrant or probable cause for them to search certain things, certain parts of your property, but the same standard doesn't apply at the border. Courts recognize that a border search exemption, which means that they can routinely search your luggage, belongings without a warrant. And so we'll talk about what tips you can safeguard your privacy on your electronic device in a few minutes. Go back to the other. Thank you. Racial and religious profiling is unlawful, even though it does persist. So it's important to document any such occurrence. Consider noting inappropriate questions and reporting them to CARE when you're experiencing those encounters with CBP. Um, they also can infringe on your First Amendment rights. This applies to U.S. citizens. However, we are seeing that infringement on First Amendment rights for non-U.S. citizens is escalating. And consequently, we've seen many non-citizens are encountering immigration consequences based on expressing their point of view that is against this administration's agenda. It's important to note that as a U.S. citizen, federal agents are not required to allow you to speak to an attorney unless you're being formally charged with a crime. Now we can go on the next slide. So, what kind of questions will they ask you? As a U.S. citizen, you have the right to decline to answer questions that go beyond establishing your identity, your citizenship, where you travel from, what is in your luggage. That means that you can decline to answer questions that go to your religion, your political or social views, opinions, relationships. However, keep in mind that this can cause delay in your entry. Even as a U.S. citizen, agents have been known to detain U.S. Citizen travelers longer to get them to answer questions, but you can decline, and you should know that you cannot be retaliated against or denied entry because you refuse to answer these additional questions. We know that the government has shown an increased interest in monitoring people's social media activities, their political opinions, especially when it comes to issues related to Palestine. So, it's going to come down to you evaluating your own comfort level and sharing personal details with the government. But I would strongly recommend against getting into any personal discussion, especially right now about your political or religious views, because this information gets stored in a database that can be accessible by multiple federal agents and state agents and can open you up to additional questioning later on by other agencies. So overall, here are some key considerations. Um, if you know that you should know that you should never lie to federal agents. That includes CBP, FBI, TSA agents. A false statement can subject you to a fine or imprisonment times. So keep this in mind when you are deciding whether or not you want to talk to an agent about any of the subjects that I just mentioned. Normally, this advice remains the same for lawful permanent residents, green card holders. However, we have seen recently that even green card holders have been detained based on their personal views. And then as a non-citizen and non-LPR status individual, failing to answer questions or providing answers that does not align with this administration policy and agenda may get you denied entry and also get you detained, unfortunately. Next slide. So if you want to, because um, CBP can take your phone as a U.S. citizen, as an LPR or non-U.S. citizen or LPR, there are steps you can take to secure your data on your electronic devices. Some of those tips are listed here. For example, you can use secure messaging apps. You can log off your social media accounts on your phone, and possibly use two-factor authentication, and maybe disable facial recognition and use a PIN. And lastly, you can remove your private data and use a different device. These are all some, but not, but it doesn't list all that you can do to secure your privacy. CBP, remember, can take your phone, but you don't have to give them your passport, and that's why they're here. There are. That's why we're providing you some tips on how you can secure your data. Next slide. To summarize, I wanted to review what are the consequences when you exercise your rights to express your viewpoints or other rights when encountering CBP or other agents at the airport or port of entries. For lawful permanent residents, this could cause some delays, but they can't deny you entry. Um, Again, you could be detained if CBP suspects that you violated your immigration status, but you have due process rights, and that due process rights would be your opportunity to be heard before an immigration judge, because only an immigration judge has the authority to revoke your status. CBP can't revoke your status. And then you would have a right for an attorney, but it would be at your own expense. Now, if you're not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, your rights are very limited. You can be denied admission and not be given a lot of clear explanation on why. You can be detained and deported, but if you fear return to your home country, you can ask for asylum. And that concludes my presentation on your rights at the airport and port of entries and what you can expect and what you can do to protect your privacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amina. Just a quick question. I don't know if you mentioned it. I was trying to answer questions. Just to reiterate, if you're a green card holder and under no circumstances should you sign the Form I-407, abandon your green card, because if you sign that, they may coerce you at CBP to sign those. If you sign it, you're going to be sent back out. So under no circumstances, as Amina said, only an immigration judge can take away your status. So do not sign anything. They may coerce you or tell you're going to be detained. If they potentially are going to take your green card, the process is they will revoke your green card ticket. You're going to be referred to immigration court, but you have to be allowed in. But if you sign the I-407, then you relinquish your rights. I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. That's definitely an important point to note that they can be very aggressive and use tactics that are coercive to convince you to sign documents that you don't completely comprehend, and they may mislead you. So it's always a general rule that if you are detained, one, don't ask to speak to an attorney, and don't sign anything that you don't understand, and ask for the attorney to review that document before you sign it. You can refuse to sign any documents and wait for advice from your attorney.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen situations where CBP have brought somebody into secondary and then offered them the 407 and basically said, if you give up your green card, we'll parole you into the country. That's a bad deal. Don't sign that. So yes, thank you, Amina.
Okay, so I'll pass it on to David for the next section.
This is going to be a somewhat broad overview of a kind of hot topic, but I'm going to talk briefly about interactions with the FBI and ICE and possibly other three-letter agencies. Let's move on to the next slide. So, I mean, if you encounter the FBI, there might be a whole bunch of reasons why they want to talk to you. Most of the time, they're not really investigating a specific crime. Sometimes they're really just fishing for information which could be harmful to the community. Of course, the FBI does investigate actual crimes, but historically, the approach to our communities has been quite broad and quite blunt. And I would say the burden is really on the Bureau to show that they're acting in our best interest. That's why we do advise people, recommend that people really not answer any questions. The Fifth Amendment gives you the right to remain silent. People sometimes think that invoking the Fifth means you've got something to hide, but really, if you don't know what the FBI is looking for, you don't know what their standard of suspicion is, you could incriminate yourself even if you are not involved in anything. So it's really it's good to be aware of your rights under the Fifth Amendment and to not be afraid to invoke them. Likewise, the Fourth Amendment gives you a right to privacy and a right against unlawful search and seizure without reasonable suspicion or probable cause. Once again, you should not feel hesitant to invoke that right. You have the right to deny them entry to your home if they don't have a valid warrant. They might contact again. I mean, anybody on this call could get contacted by the FBI. It happens. Please, if you do decide you're going to talk to the FBI for some reason, seek advice from an attorney first. Before you talk to them, before you sign any documents, tell them you have an attorney follow up with them on your behalf. Next slide. So do we have another slide for FBI? I thought I missed a slide. Okay, maybe not. So there were two slides. So for ICE, people, it really honestly, at this point, any non-citizen has the potential to be detained by ICE. It can't really say that they're following the rules right now, but those who have particular vulnerability, those with prior removal orders, those, if you have a pending application with no current underlying legal status, and again, even at this point, even if you don't have a criminal record, even if you entered the country legally, not having any currently valid status, even though pending application technically gives you a valid reason, reason to stay in the country, they have not been honoring that in practice. Pending applications, those who've entered without inspection is a big category of people that we've seen having issues with ICE. Means you entered without a valid visa. People are undocumented, even without a criminal record, even people who've been here for most of their lives. It's really a time to be cautious. ICE could come to your home, they could come to work, they could come to school, they could come in any other places. They do tend to target people at public places, such as a sidewalk when you're exiting your home, walking towards your car, terrible situations where one member of the family goes out for a walk and they don't come back. And then another member of the family goes out to look for them and they don't come back. It really is like a horror movie. So please be careful. If they want to come into your home, they do need a judicial warrant. We'll take a look at what that warrant looks like in a moment. You have the right to deny them entry if you do not see a warrant and if the warrant does not appear to be valid to you. If you do have legal status, if you have a green card, please carry your green card with you. I would say other people may have a different experience or different understanding. I would say carry your actual green card with you and keep a color copy at home. Because obviously the green card could get lost, it could get stolen, but definitely keep the real one with you, keep a copy at home, any other proof of valid status, keep it with you on your person. Be prepared to show it to ICE if they question you while you're in public. Next slide. General tips, please remain calm. Don't run if you're in public. I'm not sure why it says don't run if you're in public. Don't run. I mean, in general, running from law enforcement is not a good idea in the United States, especially when they're carrying guns. Just don't run. Don't fight. Don't be belligerent. Don't be confrontative. But if you're in a private place such as your home, don't open the door. Know that you have a right not to open the door if they don't show a warrant. Don't answer any questions. You're not, again, as I said, you have Fifth Amendment rights. Don't answer any questions. But if you do answer questions, again, don't lie. It is a crime to lie to a member of the federal, to lie to any law enforcement. It also can impact any pending immigration that you have if you are found to have misrepresented anything material, to have committed any kind of fraud. So don't try to be clever. Make a decision. If you're going to answer some questions, don't lie. But we recommend people not answer questions. If you're in public and at risk of being detained, remain silent. If you feel you might have been detained, ask the officer, "Am I free to leave?" If they say yes, just walk away calmly. If they say no, tell them, "I'm exercising my right to remain silent and I'd like to call my attorney." If you have legal status, please provide proof of your status. LPR card or real ID could be sufficient. Again, don't sign anything without a lawyer present. Ask for an interpreter. Ask for translations of any documents they're asking you to sign. But again, don't sign anything without an attorney looking at it. Call your attorney as soon as you can. Next slide. So this is just an example of a warrant. Some areas that we've seen warrants sort of fail. Warrants are often mass produced. Take a look at the warrant. Make sure that you're looking, that it is the right address, that it actually is a warrant to enter your home. Note that the people on the warrant should be the people who currently reside in that home. It will specify which areas may be searched in the home. Check the date. Is it still current? Check to see if it's actually signed by a judge. This is certainly an area where a lot of warrants fail. And then the example on the right is how you can distinguish an immigration warrant from from another kind of criminal or judicial warrant. And I think that's it for me. I do think we missed one slide. I can post it into the chat, but I don't want to hold things up. Let's move on.
Thank you, David. Hi, everybody. My name is Sara Kogaray. I'm an immigration attorney at Project Anar. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to prepare for potential detention, what to expect in the detention process, where we're noticing in trends of where people are being detained, and we can provide some resources that you can use, especially if you don't have an attorney. But I do want to echo what everyone else has said, that in a lot of situations, you want to be in touch with an immigration attorney as soon as possible, specifically about to get more specifics about your case. But hopefully some of the information today will help you and your family be prepared, whether you have an attorney or not. We can go ahead to the next slide. So yeah, just to get started, we are noticing recently, especially since the shooting in Washington, D.C., that there have been more targeting of Afghan communities. We've noticed and heard of reports in Sacramento, in in Fresno. We anticipate there'll be ICE presence in areas like Fremont, I'm sure in Virginia. And so hopefully some of this will help people in those communities know what to expect and be prepared in advance. So this it's not necessarily super new. It's been happening to other communities over the last year once Trump was elected, and there's been increased funding for immigration enforcement. But we are noticing that people are being arrested and detained at their ICE check-ins, or whether they're going to the ICE office for some reason. There have been reports of arrests at immigration court, inside and outside of their homes, or suddenly being called in for a nice appointment and being arrested there. As far as detention, we're noticing that adult males are being separated from the rest of their family. Mothers and children, as far as we can tell, are being detained together before being transferred. And then some family members are even being released, but with an ankle monitor. So these are just some things to look out for in the community. And I'll have some links and information of what you can do and who you can inform if you do notice, especially if you are a citizen or have lawful status here, how you can let others know that there's ICE in your community. So going to the next slide, we'll go ahead and start off with ways you can protect yourself. I would echo everything that Spojmijan, David, and Amina said about knowing your rights, when ICE can enter your home and how, traveling, all of those things can keep you prepared and informed. And I'll put here in the chat the link to what are called ILRC red cards. One second. These have all of your Know Your Rights information that we've talked about in this presentation in various languages. You can print it out, you can keep it on your phone. Especially when you're in the home, you can just hand that to an officer without opening the door so that they know that you're exercising these rights. So that's really important. If it's hard to memorize all of this, you can have that review it with your family. So that you have those things kind of second nature, because when these kinds of things happen, when when ICE comes to your door, there's a raid or there's large presence, it can be very you can get very flustered, it can be very overwhelming, and it's hard to know in that moment what's the right thing to do. ICE can be very intimidating, and so you might not feel confident or comfortable feeling confrontational with them. So having that information on a card can help empower yourself so that you do something that might feel counterintuitive, especially if there's police knocking on your door. Telling them that you're not allowing them in can be more difficult than it seems, I think. As far as what you can do when you have things like asylum interviews or immigration, a hearing in immigration court, even USCIS interviews, do not go to those alone. You want to make sure that there's someone with you, especially if they're a US citizen, who knows your emergency contact information, knows the name and number of an attorney, so that if, God forbid, if you are arrested and then detained at one of these places, you have someone that can immediately get in touch with your family and start the process of trying to get you in touch with an attorney while you're detained. I'm also including here there's a pro se, which means, on your own without the help of an attorney template, requesting a motion requesting a virtual appearance. This is especially important if you have immigration court, where you definitely cannot miss those. You can be ordered, deported if you do miss your immigration hearings. So something like this is an attempt. It's not guaranteed, obviously, but it can be a way for you to try to protect yourself by having your hearing done online instead of in person. So that's really important to know. As far as things like biometrics, this is a little anecdotal, but maybe will be helpful. We've noticed that for biometrics specifically, there have been reports of people being arrested at those appointments. But if you are able to attend or go to your biometrics appointment early, definitely don't miss it. But if you go the day before, or even the morning before, if you have an afternoon appointment, that can be one way that you can kind of avoid ICE, especially if they're there looking for you. So hopefully these are some ways that you can make sure that you're attending all of the required hearings, all the required interviews, but feeling a little bit more safe as far as avoiding ICE, especially if they're trying to target you. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so much of what happens during and after an arrest or detention is going to be done in advance. And really, it's just a matter of getting organized, kind of knowing what to expect so that you can have, systems in place to help yourself and your family so that things are a little bit more predictable if that day comes. So family and emergency preparedness is something that is really important, that we suggest everyone sit down and talk to their family about what to do. And I'll share another resource here from ILRC that has a step-by-step plan for how you can prepare yourself. And I'll go over some of those things here, and I can let you know about another event next week that you can also attend to get a little bit more information in light of the new immigration changes that Spojmijan told us about. So some overarching things to keep in mind is childcare, knowing who will have guardianship of your children, making sure that the school's emergency contacts are updated, who's going to pick them up from school. You want to teach your children things to say, appropriate phrases. For instance, if they're talking to law enforcement or anything, tell them that, I want to talk to my mom first or my dad first. They can even say, I have a right to talk to an attorney. So educating your family can help them know what to do in those moments of what would be otherwise panicked. You want to keep all of your important documents in an organized folder. This can include your IDs, your passports, A numbers, birth certificates, marriage certificates, any important medical information, immigration documents. If you have power of attorney for somebody to make decisions in your absence, all of that should be in one place so that you can just grab that, share it with the attorney, or just know what next steps to take. It's also important to understand what your immigration options are. If you're here and you are married to a US citizen, but you don't have status, it's important to know what options you have for relief. Are you eligible for asylum? Are you eligible for bond? Kind of getting educated in advance by attending these kinds of events, I think is really important. You also want to make sure that you have the contact for an emergency contact memorized. Again, in that moment, you might not be able to keep your personal items on you. And so being able to contact someone whose number you have memorized is really important. This goes also for trusted attorneys. Unfortunately, in these moments of panic, there's a lot of opportunity to be defrauded. So you want to make sure that you at least have the contacts for some people in advance, either in your binder so your family can contact them, or if you know it by heart, so that you can contact them when you're detained. If you have lawful status, and I won't go over this too much because I think Amina went over this, but keep copies of your status on you or your actual green card if you have a green card. If you don't have any lawful status, but you have applied or you have a pending application or a pending appeal, keep a copy of the receipt notices or proof of that as well. We can go on to the next slide. Okay, so if you are detained, the first thing your family would want to do, or someone trusted, a family member or friend, is to find you in the ICE locator, detainee locator. So you can do this using someone's A number and country of origin. If you don't know their A number, you can look it up with their first and last name and birth date and country of origin. So this is really important because whereas in criminal court, you can kind of predict what county somebody will be in or what county jail they'll be in after arrest. In immigration court, there's some sense, but you can be transferred pretty easily anywhere in the country. So that's really helpful to know where someone is, if they're in ICE processing still, or if they've been actually processed into a detention center and where that is. So you can see on that website what kind of information you need. And then once you reach an attorney, really important to have, again, their A number is very helpful, country of origin and birth date, what their current immigration status is. If they have any medical or health conditions, this can be very helpful in getting someone out of detention. It's usually, that's not something that they want to deal with. And so having that information and proof of that can be very helpful. Definitely also tell the immigration attorney if the person has any criminal history, as this will also impact the likelihood. Hiding that does not help because the courts and the immigration court and the government has that information already. You just want to make sure that the attorney has as much information as you do so that they can properly help defend you. So we can go ahead to the next slide. Yeah, so I won't go over these again, but things that are important to have, the contacts of attorneys and how to get into the detainee locator. I will put in the chat the California Rapid Response Network. There's a PDF or a website where you can, based on the county that you're in, you can have you contact them. Sometimes there's an attorney of the day or on call that can help start this process for you, at least finding where your loved one is, and getting some of those initial steps out of the way. I'll put this and as well as these links for legal support and hotlines to report ICE activity, as I mentioned at the beginning, will also be in the chat.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I know we're right at 4:02. Oma Jana, I'm not sure if these slides are going to be shared. We do have this live on Facebook, which will be there. I tried my best with my colleagues listening. I tried my best to answer the questions. Probably the first time we've answered about 90% of the questions because we were going to reserve time, but we didn't. So I figured I'd answer the questions. I hope that you found this informative and helpful. We know people have a lot of questions and anxiety. This was just a starting point. Inshallah, we will continue with my partners here. With other partners, we will do some in Pashto and Dari, but this was just a starting point. This is, I believe, one of the first of the webinars nationwide. I hope it was useful to you in some way, and please continue to follow all of these organizations that are doing tremendous work. I'll turn it over to Omar Jan.
Yeah, I think I know we're short on time, and I know there's a lot to cover. And I wanted to also just plug Sarah John's event coming up. If you want to share a little bit about Project Anar's event, so another opportunity for people to learn a little bit more about what's going on and getting additional resources.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you all want to reach out to Project Sonar, we can answer some more of these questions. But next week on the 10th, we'll have an emergency family preparedness webinar going over the recent immigration changes and how you can prepare a little bit more in detail as we've discussed here. And I'll put the link to register for that webinar in the chat as well. Thank you, Marjan.
Yeah, and we also have some resources on the screen for you all as well. So please take a look at that. The Ready Now app, Human Rights First Alert. We'll put some links into the chat as well. And then Amina and any other panelists, if you have any closing statements or things you want to share, want to make sure we have time for that as well.
Yes, thank you, everyone, for organizing this important webinar, and all those attending. Please share the information that you learned to your friends and family that could be impacted. I just shared a link to our website that has access to our intake form for both our civil rights and immigration services. So if you are approached by ICE or contacted by the FBI, I recommend that you contact CARE and submit an intake form, and they can assess your situation, give you advice, and also speak to the FBI on your behalf. Also, on that link, you can request a one-on-one consultation for your immigration case as well. And then what you see on the screen is our phone numbers for all of our 4 offices. So there are multiple ways that you can contact CARE to request for legal services. In addition, we also created a sign-on letter demanding that demanding that the administration revoke their policies, and stating the reasons why we oppose targeting the Afghan community. And so I put the link just now in the chat. Please sign this and share it with your network so that we can show how much support we want to provide to our Afghan community. Thank you.
And so I just want to encourage everybody to follow AACO, Afghan-American Community Organization, Project Anar, CARE LA, CARE SF Bay Area. These are organizations and community members and allies that are supporting Afghan Americans during this difficult time. And we know that there's so much information. People have so many questions and so many things that may have gone unanswered, but continue to stay up to date with our organizations. There will be more opportunities for education, more opportunities to get some of those questions answered. Please look at those resources. CARE, other organizations in your areas may have some opportunities and resources for folks who need the immigration legal support. So please look into those links. And we just want to thank all of you for joining us today. And we know that it's a difficult moment for everybody and a difficult time, but we thank everybody for taking the time to come here today and to support the Afghan community and so many other communities at this time. So,
Omar John, quick question. People are asking if the slides are going to be shared.
Yeah, we'll talk to the panelists, and if everyone's okay with that, we can share the slides as well in a follow-up email. I think that their Facebook Live went down halfway, but we'll put it on YouTube so you can see the full presentation on YouTube, and we'll send that in an email to everyone registered as well.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for my co-panelists for your time, expertise. Inshallah, we look forward to reconnecting with the community in this difficult time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.